Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live from Manchester, New Hampshire. So, we are in the middle of quite a NATO meeting. The president starting early our time this morning. We've been like more than midday there in Turkey. Held several press conferences. You know, well, let me go with that first, and then I'll tell you one of my observations on it, because it just annoys the hell out of me so much. The president held a press conference first during, I don't know if it was before or after. It looked like it was after his meeting with Zelensky. Well, you'll see. And then, so he had one with President Zelensky, and then he had one with his own team later with Marco Rubio and I think Pete Hegseth was there, and several others. Now, in many ways, they covered the same ground. So we'll take a few excerpts from each. What's on the table, I guess, the two main issues on the table are obviously NATO. What's going to happen with Ukraine in NATO? Is Ukraine going to be able to get? They need more arms, but they specifically need interceptor ballistic missiles that can high-level interceptor missiles that can take out the most sophisticated Russian ballistic missiles, which are now being used against them. And as you recall from last night's show, we had a young lady on, Maria, who was talking to us while sirens were going off in Kyiv, which is their capital city. And this would have been the third out of 5 nights that it was getting very heavy bombardment. The first night, which was last Thursday, took out 30 people. The next one, 12. We don't know what happened last night. Don't think it was as bad. But nor do I think, however, that Ukraine was able to intercept any of the sophisticated missiles. And they were able to take out some of the less sophisticated missiles and the ones and the drones that were being used, although I think it was mostly missile attack. Now, at the same time, as this is going on, although they don't have the very, very highest level, most complex interceptor missiles, they do have a lot of other missiles, and they have a lot of drones because they manufacture their own drones, and they're one of the best in the world at it. And they are doing a hell of a job of bombarding Russia. They have created, Ukraine has isolation in Crimea, a pretty close to isolation in a good deal of Crimea. I think 2 of the 3 bridges are down, and the third one is consistently under attack. So I don't recommend driving over it. People are fleeing Crimea. It is not going to be much of a vacation spot this summer for the Russians to profit from. Plus, a lot of their oil and other important minerals that are kept there and that come through there have been destroyed. And a great deal of their energy supply has been interrupted and destroyed, such that there are gasoline lines in parts of Russia. And of course, as you saw, for the first time, they have made St. Petersburg and Moscow directly aware of the fact that for the last 4.5 years, their government has been slaughtering Ukrainian civilians, as they did within the last week. So President Trump was pressed as to what he's going to do about it. We'll let him talk about that. And then the other issue that not a lot has come out yet about is what's the future of NATO. The president was very open during his discussion with both Erdogan yesterday and today with Zelensky there, that he doesn't have much use for NATO. Shouldn't say that. He doesn't have much use for 4 countries in NATO that he pointed out by name: France and Germany, Italy, and England, all of whom turned him down. Spain is just off the charts completely. I mean, Spain is basically a communist country. It's the Cuba of Europe. And I predict their economy will be for shit very, very shortly. But in any event, let's listen to the president. This looks like the meeting with Zelensky, if I'm correct.
About the fact that we'll give them the right to make patriots. We'll show them how to do it. It's very complex, actually, but it's you'll figure out the complexity quickly. And we're talking about that, and the company that makes them, which is building now 4 plants, you know, all of our companies will be able to do this in 2 to 3 months. If you order a Patriot, now you have to wait a long time for them. Same thing with Tomahawks. We have a lot of certain equipment, but with they call it the elite equipment, and you don't need elite equipment necessarily for a war. But so one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I say make them yourself. We haven't informed the company of that yet, but that'll work out all right. You know.
Well, I wonder who the little birdie was. We'll have to guess, Ted. We know the White House pretty well. We'll have to say, who looks like a bird in the White House? So all the reaction, and what's going, that's NATO, and that's the discussions in Ankara. But what's going on in the battlefield? It's been active again after, you know, some time of ceasefire, even though there were some small attacks during that period. There was nothing of this dimension. The thing that started it all was several days ago, Iran, with no warning, attacked. Well, no, that's not true. The IRGC warned the vessels that were coming down, I believe, the Oman part of the Strait of Hormuz, thinking that, you know, it was safe. First of all, a lot of ships had gone through at that point, including a lot of Iranian ships for which we had waived the sanctions, and they got money. Well, they haven't got, I'm not sure that they've gotten the money yet. The money is coming to them. Well, let's talk about that in a minute. The IRGC warned them not to come through. If I'm correct on my arithmetic, 4 out of the 6 complied and just turned around and went back. 2 others that were coming out of UAE and Oman, I think, and then eventually one out of Qatar. And a British ship also. There were 2 ships were hit very hard. One was hit, and one was hit but not sure what it was hit with. That was the British ship. So they counted as 2 strikes, really serious ones that disabled the ships, and a third one that also did that. We didn't wait very long. We immediately responded with an attack that was a heavier and stronger attack than any that we've done since before the ceasefire, when we were in active warfare with them. We hit numerous targets and significant targets that we've been trying to take out for some time. And we did it very timely. I believe within about a 2-hour period, we had 80 targets, and almost all successfully. And this was the first such attack since June 17th, since the Memorandum of Understanding. And even before that, the attacks that were retaliatory attacks for things they were doing were fairly minor, commensurate with what they did. This was considerably more significant than what they did. This wasn't quite a massive attack, but it was a very strong attack, and it was an attack clearly very strategic, clearly aimed at making it harder and more difficult to do what they had just done, because most of the attack was along the Iranian side of the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz. So they took out radar stations, they took out ammunition areas, they took out guns that were along there. They took out what would be launching pads for drones, and they sunk 60 small IRGC boats. These boats are the boats that are used to trap and kind of corner the big vessels there 60 is a number that I have here. Now, that sounds like a lot. If there were 80 strikes and 60 of them were on those boats, I think that 60 might be one we should check into. But I think we did take out a lot of both. They hit more than 80 targets, including, so I'll read the release, hitting more than 80 targets, including air defense systems, command and control networks, anti-ship missile sites, and more than 60 Iranian small boats near the waterway. The attacks were 4 to 5 times more extensive than other strikes launched since the agreement to end the war was signed last month. The U.S. still considers the ceasefire in effect, but will respond in a massive way to any violations done by the Iranians. And this was a clear violation. I mean, they've done many minor ones, but this was a very, very provocative one. Now, Iran responded immediately. First of all, the speaker, who was supposed to be one of the more moderate guys, but I mean, he plays both sides against the middle, and he's a terrorist killer. Bagar Ghalibaf said that the U.S. reinstated sanctions and fresh strikes, as well as Iranian readjustments to the strait. And we don't fold. It'll lead nowhere. The era of bullying and extortion is over. And they consider that the ceasefire has been violated by the United States. They disregard, they don't mention their attack on 4 vessels, 2 very serious ones. Now, I think we responded again, and now we went after the islands, including Tums Island, Quesh Island, Sarik, and Bandar Abbas. These are all islands and facilities along the shore that support their ability to cut off the Strait of Hormuz. So their capacity to do what they did 3 days ago should be much reduced. And they were warned that the U.S. warships are on standby to reinstate the blockade or the massive attacks that basically crippled Iran just a few months ago. The president did announce, and he never really announces these things in advance, that we're going to attack him again tonight, or at least very shortly. And he said he normally wouldn't do that, but they have no defense. They're just wide open. You see Mr. Zelensky's face up there, I imagine. Mr. Zelensky, basically, Zelensky is there for 2 things. To get, if not agreement, certainly buy-in, no objection to their aggressive actions that they're taking right now. They have gone over 1,200 miles into Russia, hit targets there so that Russia can realize they're at war and maybe stop it. And they have been fairly successful, first of all, in defending against Russia taking any significant amount more territory. In the process, they have recaptured some territory, although not any recently, but because actually more of their activities recently have been to hit St. Petersburg, outside of St. Petersburg, outside of Moscow, and to hit significant facilities for, and also to isolate Crimea and put Crimea in play, which is, of course, would take Russia back to before their first attack back in 2014 under Obama. So as they talk about they're getting together and having negotiations, Ukraine is going in right now with a much stronger hand than they had a few months ago or a year ago. And the president said that he spoke to Putin and that Putin wants to talk and wants to meet, but he wants to meet in Moscow, and the president does not think that's a good idea. And then he threw the question to Zelensky. He said, I don't think that's a good idea for you. What do you think? And Zelensky really didn't give an answer to it. He made some of the other points that he had come there to make about needing missiles and thanking us for our help. beyond the obvious help, a lot of the accuracy that they have in finding these targets, both occupied Ukraine and in Russia, come from SpaceX, and they also come from Starlink, and they come from us, the U.S., which Putin has asked Trump not to do, and Trump either turns them down or doesn't pay attention to them. I don't know if the president tells him, "Sorry, Vladimir," or "I heard you," but from throughout, the cooperation between our intelligence and theirs has been excellent. And remember, we have all of the sophisticated space surveillance, even in comparison to the European countries. His reception yesterday in Turkey was extremely elaborate. Erdogan showed up at the airport. Erdogan accompanied him on a review of the military. Erdogan treated him like the most important leader in the world because Erdogan is sucking up to him. Erdogan wants to be, for this month, an ally of the United States. Erdogan is not a fool. Erdogan is not a member of the Times editorial board, a jackass like that. Erdogan knows who won that war. And Erdogan knows how easily we did it. And I think he looks at, now Erdogan plays a lot with Russia. And there are times in which he's been more favorable to Russia than us, even China. But Erdogan is a very practical man. Now, he has in front of us a tremendous order for jets, which both Republicans and Democrats in the Congress and Prime Minister Netanyahu have urged the president not to sell the F-35 jets to Turkey. The president has eased the way to doing that by lifting the sanctions on Turkey that he had actually imposed 2017, I think. They were caught. They were caught selling S-400s to Russia against our sanctions, and therefore we sanctioned them and said they wouldn't be able to participate in the we have a program where we try to fairly allocate some of these F-35s that we make because we want them for ourselves as well. And they have not been on that list. So they're back on the list, but that doesn't indicate he's going to go through with it. Pardon?
I don't want him to waste his time answering that question because we're working very closely with Marco Rubio, a very famous man, great Secretary of State, and with Scott Bessent, and with Pete and everybody else. We're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that. Okay? We don't want to sanction friends. It's very simple. There's plenty of people we can sanction, and we are sanctioned. We don't want to sanction friends. And because of the president, we have a very good relationship with the new leader of Syria, and he's done an amazing job.
That is a very good thing to hear, because if you go back to 2 years ago, when, due to the efforts of Israel, largely, and with our help, although we don't acknowledge the level of that help, I suspect it's more than people think. But also Israel gets tremendous credit for undermining Abbas and getting that whole family out of Syria. Well, the new president was a reformed terrorist. Now, of course, once a terrorist, always a terrorist. Is that right? No, not completely. Look at Begin, or you can find examples of people who turned around, either out of morality or out of practicality. More likely the second. And so the president had looked at him, and he hadn't just turned around that day. He had 2 or 3 years of, in order to put the coalition together that he needed to overthrow the Syrian government. He had to give up connections with the terrorist group, act more independently, and act with groups that wanted a much more benign, normal government. And he promised to give them one. So far, so good. And that's good news. The president has a good relationship with him. I think in this particular case, although Netanyahu is objecting to kind of favoritism with Turkey, because Turkey gives Israel a lot of problems. Didn't always used to, but they do now. Israel has about as good a relationship with Syria as they've ever had. So I think the president has this one assessed, and Marco and the rest of them right on target. Is the guy fooling us? Well, I guess we'll find out. But right now he's doing what we want and helping a lot. And also has helped a lot in the reduction in power of Hezbollah, which after all was Iran's ace in the hole. That was their surrogate group. That was the one they were counting. That was the cleanup hitter. Hamas kind of struck out for them completely. Whoever else they have batting number 2, I don't know, but he was clearly only a bunter. And the number 3 hitter were the Houthis, and the Houthis said no mas when America started bombing their ports. And we made sort of a peace with them. And since then, they've done just recently a few bombings of Israel that didn't work because they're so damn far away. And Israel does have a defense system. They really can't challenge Israel, and they don't want to get. They've been threatening to block up the Red Sea the way Iran has done in the Strait of Hormuz. But they see what's been done to Iran. They're much smaller, and it would be just a day or two, and then they would be history. And I think they realize that, and they are not as insane by any stretch of the imagination as the reign of terror. I was glad to hear the president use the word insane in describing the reign of terror. It sounded to me like he's at the end of the string. He's given them a lot of rope. I think not to hang themselves, but on the sincere side, they grab onto it, and some group there would decide to create a government that was acceptable and a government that would work with the rest of the world. But that doesn't seem to happen, because whether the group that he's dealing with is more reasonable than 2 regimes ago or not, I don't think they are. Because in the government of Iran, there have always been several people who acted the part of reformers. But if you took a good look at their record, they were murderers. And they turned out to be as vicious, as bloodthirsty, and as insanely religious zealots as the Ayatollah. But even assuming that they are somewhat more reasonable or convinced that they have to stop so they can fight another day, live to fight another day, they obviously don't control all the levers of power, because here, I mean, nothing could undercut all the work they did on a ceasefire than what the IRGC does. And I tend to think the IRGC has the ear, if he has one, of the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is missing body parts. We don't know which ones. We're not really even absolutely sure he's alive. But assuming he is, because the decision-making, when push comes to shove, always seems to be with the IRGC. After all, they started this, what might be a reigniting of the war. We didn't. They went and hit those ships when they were promising that the Gulf was going to be open, and the Gulf had been opened. The subject of conversation at Ankara is, in fact, more about Ukraine. I think they did that yesterday. And interspersed in between that are, of course, the bigger issues, the more global issues for NATO. Is NATO going to exist? President today said he was very disappointed when he was turned down for help by England, France, Italy, and Germany. I don't think he asked Spain, but that had been useless. Spain is probably helping the other side. And he said, he questioned, if they're not there for us, why should we allocate so much of our defense resources and our money to being there for them? That's a sucker relationship. And knowing the president, that's not a general condemnation of Europe. I wish in speaking the press and everybody else would be more precise. He's talking about Western Europe. He's talking about Europe, Germany going west. So now if we get over to even, this is not exactly on the map, exactly correct, but I would think you start with Romania and Hungary and you start going east. There are very few countries there that aren't good countries for us, love Americans, appreciate America. Now, what's the difference? The countries that are Western Europe have been coddled and taken care of and have been spoiled, whatever you call them, living on their history for a long time now. And America has, for some reason, felt like they didn't have to defend themselves. We defend them. Now, you know, when we had unlimited amounts of money, or maybe didn't care about what we were spending, it was okay. But it's now making it it's making difficult for us to take care of all the obligations we have, create a great life for our people, which is, after all, America first, right? And also to deal with the defense of the whole world, because we have equally greater threats, and possibly for us greater threats in the Pacific. And I don't know that the administration is considering this, but it should be considering an allocation or reallocation of some forces to the Asian theater, to the South China Sea, areas like that. Interestingly, Marco Rubio apparently has been meeting on the side in Ankara with representatives of those governments. He did a deal with Japan and one of the others who came there to meet with him. So what are we looking at, Ted? Is that the attack on?
Just in the background. Sorry, I didn't have
Well, since we have several wars going on, which one are we talking about there?
That is the U.S. attack.
That's part of the U.S. attack on Tehran. I didn't mention, I don't think, that there was also a hit in Tehran on a very large facility. And when they were complaining about it, because they showed some of the destruction of it, it was said that it was some kind of warehouse. That was no warehouse. When I looked at that, that looked an awful lot to me like a major IRGC headquarters, which would make sense because Tehran is the city they worry about the most because the Ayatollah is there. And we've also done a pretty good job of hitting Qom, which is their holy city, if you can consider these people holy. And we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with, is the rapist Nazi going to remain as a candidate for the Senate in Maine for the party of slavery, which is now almost looking as bad or worse than it was when it was the party of slavery. It's the party of communism, socialism, Muslim extremism. Is he going to remain? And how did everybody in the party turn in one day? I mean, just a few days ago, we found out, we never knew much about Pocahontas' romantic life, but she said, this guy's a real man. So now we get a little insight into Pocahontas. She doesn't look like she has much of a, she doesn't look, I don't want to say anything like that, but you know what I'm talking about. But all of a sudden this guy's a man. I don't know Pocahontas if I get too close to him. He's got a pretty bad record with those other women. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back with the dilemmas of the party of slavery. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory,
not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. And we have a drama going on with a man who is running for the Senate, but really, I think, and please, this is in his best interest and everyone else's. The standard for putting someone in a mental hospital is, do they present a danger to themselves or others? So now this is the second woman on the record and fourth or fifth woman overall that has said that this man is out of control and dangerous. The first one, Fiefeld, who turns out to be a Republican now, had major problems with him about 7 or 8 years ago, and considered him, by the time the relationship broke up, to be an animal. Not only did he throw her out of a car, lock her in a closet. These are not normal things to do, at least, maybe for Democrats, a lot of them it is. They seem to be okay with it. He also would often talk about how if there was going to be I don't know exactly how he posited this, but if somebody came to rape him, he would rape a woman. Or if there was a rape going on that he could interrupt, he'd interrupt it and he would partake of the rape. He has said awful things for some reason about the Blessed Virgin Mary, who's under attack also, you'll find out later, in Corsica right now by another Democrat, Blessed Mother. And he of course, the reason he should have been disqualified as a candidate immediately by any decent, real American party would be the Nazi tattoo that he wore for almost 20 years, which he knew was a Nazi SS tattoo, honoring the mass murderers of the Nazi regime, the SS, and lied about not. I mean, he basically wanted us to believe this pathological, insane liar that he didn't know that this was a Nazi tattoo. Now, these women say he used to brag about it, and they have numerous corroboration of it, which the first woman who came forward pointed out the New York Times never bothered to look for, never bothered to interview the women and the documents she made available to corroborate the fact that the Times suspicion that she was doing this because she's a Republican is belied by the fact that she recited and explained these things 7 and 8 years ago before she had any idea he was going to run for office, and had no political involvement of any kind. Now, the interesting thing is the woman who came forward now is a left-wing Democrat like he is, and says despite her agreement with his political views, she felt it necessary to come forward with this because he raped her. And she also felt that she owed it to the other women that had come forward that were being attacked. Now, we know of the one publicly. There are 2 others that privately have said that he was involved in some form of abuse. We don't have the details of that because the Times doesn't give it to us. The Times is covering up for him until now. Now they'll want to get, like they covered up for Swalwell for years, all during the time that he had a red Chinese mistress. They covered up for him. And then somebody came along and added another one of many sexual assault allegations. And they said, oh, we got to pull the plug on him. That's because had he stayed in the race, we might have assured a Republican governor for California, because there was a chance in a strange, weird, designed for corruption system they have in California. There could have been 2 Republicans on the ballot because there's so many people running. And Swalwell took up a big chunk of votes, about 15 to 17%. And he and Steve were going back and forth for first place. And sometimes Steve and the other Republican, who was the sheriff in a county near Los Angeles, were 1 and 2. So they had to get Swalwell out. So they just picked one of the numerous allegations against him, used it, and pushed him out. That's what's going on here. They were very happy with this absolute Nazi, and clearly a guy who probably should be, at least for a while, put in an institution of some kind before he hurts someone.
Needs fighters, and Graham Plattner is the fighter we need. You bet. I said to myself, that's my kind of man.
Past a
Well, Pocahontas is never usually that direct about her attraction to men. That's her kind of man, huh? A Nazi, a man who was involved in abusing women and raping women, a man who went into the army in order to kill people. That was his desire for going into the army, who attacked several of his colleagues in the army as being faking, and these are people who got Purple Hearts, and who was attacked the Blessed Mother, who was attacked Biden, of course, Trump all the time. But Pocahontas, that was her man. But now she wants him, and Bernie campaigned with him, right? Now, they're doing this because they want to put a guy on the ticket named Jackson. I don't know who Jackson is, but he meets Bernie Sanders' qualification for hating America and wanting to do away with the police, tax everybody they don't like into oblivion, take over the means of production, and turn us into the kind of country that he really likes because he went on his honeymoon there, like the Soviet Union. So it looks like Bernie is calling the shots. So it's going to be interesting to see what Platner does today. The other person calling the shots is a kid named Morris Katz. He's 27. He was the theoretical genius who was able to elect Mondami with like 6% of the vote. Now, I'm not going to say that takes a genius. In fact, running as a Democrat in New York doesn't take a genius at all. If I ran as a Democrat in New York and I had been a Democrat a mayor who reduced crime more than any mayor in history, reduced welfare more than any mayor in history, created more years of surplus than any mayor in history, had New York the safest large city in America for 5 or 6 straight years, made New York the example for Time magazine of urban renaissance, the best turnaround in the United States. I can just go on and on and on. If I had that kind of record, everything in New York would be named after me. Instead, nothing. And this is not a plea to have anything named after me. Until the city changes, I wouldn't want anything named after me. Right now, the city is becoming a socialist/communist enclave. And the people aren't all that way. In fact, only 7% vote for the other 93% have given up, just like they have in Chicago and Philadelphia and Atlanta. And we have to reclaim these places for America and to help the poor there. Because the Democrats' use of the poor is to exploit them. So Morris Katz, remember this guy's name. He wants to elect a president, but he's not going to be able to do it with Mondani because one thing that's good news is he wasn't born in the United States. He was born outside the United States, and you can't run for president. Now, most Democrats have now turned their back on him. They're running like for the hills. But Stephen King, the author of those ridiculous books that scare everybody, but who makes a fortune off it because he exploits people with these horror books, useless horror books, is continuing to support Mondami because I guess Mondami looks like a character in his books, right? So he's not going to be afraid of Mondami, given the kind of sick literature that he spends all his time with. So now we have 2 women. Lindsay Feifeld was the first one. And Lindsay was rejected on the grounds that she was a Republican. And the second one now, Jenny Rassicote, I guess is the way you put it. I'm not sure of the pronunciation of the second name. Jenny is a left-wing Democrat like him. Feifeld said, Jenny and I, having never met or spoken, both shared with these reporters terrifyingly similar details of intimate partner violence, coercive control, and cycles of abuse, love, bombing. The third unnamed woman in the story did as well. And in each case, the women supplied people to corroborate it, which the Times ignored. So Elizabeth Warren said, this is my kind of man. Now, my kind of man is now more than ever, we need leaders in Washington to reflect our values. There can be no tolerance for sexual assault, but there can be for being a Nazi. And what about the first woman's allegation of sexual assault, Pocahontas? Senator Bernie Sanders, who's more and more looking like a senile old creep, said there are no saints in the United States Senate. Well, you're right, babes, but he's a lot different than not being a saint. In light of these very serious allegations, I have recommended that he step aside. Yeah, you may lose. Senator Cory Spartacus Booker, in his heroic role as Spartacus, said he has lots of issues, but my God, we need the Senate. So it doesn't matter. He actually acknowledges the issues, and he's basically telling you he doesn't give a shit. The guy can be a rapist, a Nazi, whatever, but they need the Senate so that Spartacus can be worth something to somebody. Himself, I guess, because he's useless otherwise. Now his Enough is enough. Graham Partner needs to step aside. Of course, the press didn't ask him, when did enough become enough? 18 years of wearing an SS symbol is not enough. And Ro Kahana, who they tell me wants to be president, boy,
He ran up to Maine so fast. So
what a kiss ass he is. Right. He ran around like Bernie campaigning for the guy. Oh, they had like a weekend together. You could see them talking at the beach.
They said there was no harm, no injury. There was toxicity, and there was verbal intimidation, which I condemn. But Graham has made it clear that there was no evidence of violence. That
I thought we believe women. I thought we believe women suck ass. Now he says he should drop out of the race. I am withdrawing my endorsement. Like he withdrew his endorsement of Swalwell. Why do you vote for them? Is there anybody out there that vote? Too bad there isn't like really interactive. Like they could just be there and now one could come up on a screen that's listening to us and say, well, I voted for them because I really want to help you get over your brainwash situation if you did vote for any of these people, because they're very bad for this country and they're very bad for your children. Pocahontas, he's my kind of man. Sanders vowed to do everything he could to make the Nazi Maine senator. He wore a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He described himself as a communist. I mean, that's okay now. You can be a communist. And Bernie would like that since he went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon. He trashed decorated Navy SEAL Chris Kyle and called another soldier who was shot in Afghanistan a dumb mother effer who didn't deserve to live. We're going to hear from this guy again, I think. I'm very worried how we're going to hear from him. I don't know. Well, in the United Kingdom, our friend Nigel Farage has left Parliament. There's some kind of an investigation going on, and by campaign money kind of thing, which sounds like something that would happen because he's really the leading threat to the government now in England that likes to put people in jail if they criticize Muslims. Yes, they do. They even threatened to put American political spokesmen in jail because they've said unkind things about Muslims. This is not only inconsistent with the First Amendment, it's inconsistent with basic activities of a civilized nation. And England is starting to cross over the line. And when, just when Charles III becomes Ayatollah Charles I is anybody's guess. And with the World Cup, if you want to, if you want to see how much they hate America, right? I have to imagine even these left-wing people. Well, maybe not. Maybe they don't vote. Maybe they don't root for America.
Right.
I mean, they look. I don't have the time to compile it for you, but I don't know how. Is it necessary for me to prove to you that the Democrats hate America? The ones that are vocal about it, that's easy. We hear them say that. I mean, you listen to them and you say, what the hell are they doing here? They can't stand the place. Why don't you just go? Like when Obama would go around apologizing for us, I'd say, why don't you just stay there? You don't like to be here. You don't like this country. Your wife told us she doesn't like this country. She didn't like this country for 40-something years of her life. But what the hell did you run for president for? And their hatred of America was displayed in their whole reaction to this controversy over the World Cup. Because if you were a fan, you would welcome the president getting involved in it to try to help the team. And you'd also be outraged by how we were being cheated. And you can't look at that call, even as a neutral, and not say that that call was, excuse the pun, but uncalled for. And there's something behind that, because you don't take out the best scorer for the rest of this game and the next game without knowing you're doing it for an extraordinarily marginal call as to whether it was an ordinary foul, much less the kind of excessive foul that would entitle the other team to the benefit of America having to play with one less person for the rest of this game. It was very close, which they could have lost, and would be deprived of this guy for an entire game that also could be an elimination game. Sounds like you wanted to get America out. You also didn't want him in there because he was getting a lot of goals, threatening Messi with having more goals than Messi, because it sounds like he is the fair-haired boy. I mean, of course, he got looked at very carefully. Any number of plays that Messi was involved in were much more egregious than this. One where he was holding a man and driving his foot into the guy's calf, and not called at all. And in the game against the Egyptians, there were several that the Egyptians are going crazy over and saying that he's allowed to do things that other players aren't allowed to do. He just basically just pushed people all around. Now, I'm not enough of a soccer expert to tell you the second part. I can tell you that the one foul that they did isolate was clearly much worse than whatever Balogun did, the American player. Also, nobody has made it really clear with this whole idea. They reversed the call. They reversed the call to allow Messi to play at all in this World Cup. So tell me, what's all this false shock about? And why can't an American president who's a fan of the team express his views as a fan? He wouldn't be much of a fan if he didn't. Somebody had to stick up for us. We were getting screwed. And this is what the president does, and we're not used to it because our presidents want to be very popular in the rest of the world all the time. They don't really give a damn about us. The reason I mentioned the Blessed Mother is Mondami's wife, who really has something wrong with her, Rama Douaji. Instead of being here for the 4th of July and the celebrations that the mayor presides over, because she hates us so much, is on a spiritual retreat to the French island of Corsica with her sisters in Palestine. And it's organized by Women's Sanctuary, a Muslim woman-focused travel group run by Parisian designer Rim Noor. Now, what are they doing in Palestine? These Muslims, devoted Muslims, are honoring the legacy of Mary, the most honored woman in the Quran. The retreat cost $3,100 to $5,260. It features lectures, daily prayers, and farm-to-table dining. They honor the legacy of Mary, the most honored woman in the Quran. And at every prayer, lecture, and meal, there was mention of our sisters in Palestine. So Mary is honored as a representative of Palestine. Now, I was going to bring down me from upstairs, have it upstairs, my Quran. This is a person who believes in a religion where they're told not to be friends with Christians by Muhammad. They're told to kill us. I don't know how you can honor Mary and be part of that religion, or at least that part of that religion that accepts that part of the Quran, because there are people who don't accept that part of the Quran. I think the majority. And Mary is really not honored in the Quran because Jesus is basically presented in the Quran as a liar. He was fooling people about being God. So he may have been a great prophet and a great whatever. In the Muslim religion and in Muhammad's view of the world, which is extremely war porn, you could be a great prophet and lie about the most fundamental thing. like you were the Son of God. So the Mary they have created, which is a sacrilege, is being honored. And I hope naive Catholics aren't congratulating them for doing this, because we have done some of the silliest things with the Muslims. We've turned churches over to them. We take a church that was used for the sacrifice of the Mass, and we turn it over to a religion that all throughout the Quran talks about killing us, including the most critical parts when Muhammad was late in life, except since the Quran's chapters are reversed, you don't get that clearly. I mean, there's no ism on earth, with the exception of possibly a communism, and probably not, that's killed more Christians than the excessive version of the religion that she practices very excessively. I mean, she is a massive Jew hater. And I can't imagine this great devotion to Mary is Mary as we earnestly believe this is Mary, some kind of fictional version of Mary, like they have a fictional version of Jesus as a liar. Well, we're going to sign off because I'm going to a baseball game tonight, which I'll tell you about tomorrow, a minor league baseball game in Manchester. We want to see a sport in which somebody scores. I haven't seen a score in a long time. But we'll be back tomorrow night. We want you to pray Israel, Iran, right? We can make sure we do that. Israel and Iran. And we want you to pray for the people of the United States. And we want to pray for the people of Ukraine. And we want you to pray for our president. And I want to thank the members of the USA Olympic team, because more important than anything they did that night, at the end, they went into a circle and they prayed to the Creator. They prayed to God. These are good men. And they represented us beautifully. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite.